Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Gone Fishing. I'm your host, Connor, CEO at Phin, and I'm joined once again by the amazing Alex Farling, co-founder at Empath. Alex, how are you?
Dude, if I hit amazing today, I'm great. I was aiming for mediocre, so let's rock and roll.
I was aiming for today didn't absolutely suck, and so far it's going great.
So far I'm on track, yeah.
For folks who don't know who you are, haven't watched any of the episodes we've done with you in the past, can you just give a little bit about your background and then also a little bit about Empath and what it is?
Yeah. I'm a recovering MSP for going on about 4 years now. I sold my MSP in 2020. Built a little company called Lifecycle Insights, which helped MSPs do quarterly business reviews and have strategic conversations with their customers. Sold that to ScalePad in 2023, and I'm on a new venture with my good friends Wes Spencer and Kyle Christensen, building out this little thing called Empath and trying to tackle the training problem that most MSPs seem to have.
Training problem. So now that you're on the vendor side, one of the things that, SaaS companies, vendors, MSPs as well, but specifically these software companies like mine as well, think about all the time is differentiation in a crowded market, like standing out, providing service above and beyond that which others can provide, or at least having messaging that's so convincing you can't tell the difference. I don't know. So why is differentiation so difficult?
I think part of it is because there's a long exercise around differentiation that we all have to go down, and it's not an easy one. I was just at Seven Figure MSP with Chris Weiser and his crew, and they had the author of the book, Wedge Selling book. I forget the exact name of that book, but if you Google the Wedge, it's a fantastic book. And the guy just talks about how do you differentiate yourself? How do you drive that wedge between you and your prospect? And that was what got me thinking you and I should talk about this topic, because Phin really is one of those products that's in a very crowded market, just like my MSP was, right? We were in little tiny Dover, Delaware, and there were a bunch of them. So it's a real challenge. And our gut always goes back to, how are you different? Well, I hire the best people. I build the best product. I only use the best tools. We answer the phone on the first ring. Those are all things that every other sales guy is going to say.
Yeah.
And so there's got to be something else in order for you to actually differentiate yourself. And that's what makes it so hard. Everything that we feel in our gut, which is maybe we do work really hard to hire the best people, or maybe we do provide the best service standard because we put all this time and energy and effort into it, and it's a focus in our business. But the next sales guy is going to say exactly the same thing, even if they don't deliver. They're
all going to promise the same outcome. That creates a ton of confusion. It whittles down your market share. It also makes getting demand way harder. I don't know if it was you that had told me this when we had first met. So for those of you who don't know, I'm also in Delaware. So, that's largely how Alex and I got connected. Is you go to a
ties
conference.
The bind, right? Oh my God, 3 guys live in Delaware and 2 of them are at the same conference.
Yeah. Holy shit! The stars have aligned. Let's put them in a room together. See what happens. If they touch, do both of them disappear? It's like
maybe. Yeah,
you never know. Nobody's seen Alex and I in the same room. Yeah. But one of the things that it might have been you said early on is nobody cares what you have to do to provide a good outcome for them. If you have little Keebler elves running around behind the scenes putting things together, or if you have a SaaS product that you've built that's, snap of the fingers, get everything done. If the outcome's the same, they have no care in the world how you got there.
Right.
And I think
at the end of the day, what they care about is their input.
Yeah.
Right. How much benefit do you deliver? How much value can you add for the least amount of input on their side?
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of SaaS products win, right? It's what you guys are aiming for. It's what we aimed for at Lifecycle. The difference at Lifecycle, we used to tell everybody everything we do, you can do in a spreadsheet. In fact, here's the spreadsheet. But it took so long to do it that nobody wanted to put the work in, right? So here's the spreadsheet, just opened everybody's eyes. And then they said, oh, I see how you're different now, right? You automate something that's super complex for me and takes a ton of time and energy. And that was really the differentiator. And as MSPs, do you automate something that everybody else doesn't? Automated patching isn't a differentiator, right? Everybody's got it. Everybody with a credit card has those features and functions. So for MSPs, it's a tougher conversation. It's a tougher thing to figure out how you sit down in the room against the other sales guy and really win. And this speaker, his name's Randy something or other, and I can't remember. But what he said was, he says, most salespeople think about a sale and they think about it's me against the guy I'm in front of. So it's me trying to sell you, and we're the 2 parties in the sale. But really, there's 3 parties in every sale. It's me, you, and the incumbent. whoever's providing that product or service today. And how do we differentiate ourselves from that person to convince you that we can solve a problem that they aren't solving for you? And in a lot of world, you may not even know you have a problem because the way you've been doing it forever was okay. It did its job. It was all right. It sufficed. And so, you take it to security awareness training, right? People have been doing security awareness training the long manual hard way for a long time, right? We have the big MSPs have a whole engineer dedicated to it. When you come along and go, yeah, but we can make that wheel faster and rounder and smoother, and here's how we do it. That's how you start to drive that differentiator. And for MSPs, at least for my MSP, the differentiator was our process. It was, we come build you an IT budget and we show you the difference. And instead of going to our customer and going, we do, we would go to them and say, well, if I delivered this budget to you, does this work similar to what the other guy shows you? Is this something that we could work together on? And then they would sit back and go, wait a minute, my IT guy is supposed to give me a budget? And that's the wedge, right? That's the differentiator. That's where we really just split things open and go, we're different. We're better. We're better because, and we don't have to say we're better. We just ask a question. So differentiation in a crowded market is where all MSPs live. They're doing, a lot of them are still clinging to help desk services, which I'll say the unpopular thing. They're a commodity, and they're going to be a race to the bottom in the next 5 years. We'll see help desk service be outsourced all over the place, turned over to AI or whatever. It is the utmost commodity, and MSPs have to figure out how to be something better, something different, something that differentiates.
One of my favorite things to do anytime I was in a sales call is to give somebody success criteria. It's like, here's everything I think you should value. I've already marked down what we do and don't do, and I've been real honest about it. Before we meet again, you should go back to who you're currently using, or you should go to your team, whoever has the information on this stuff, and you should really get to the bottom of, do you care about anything that's on this spreadsheet that I think you should? And if the answer is no, then you don't want to change, or I don't want to waste your time. You don't want to waste my time. Let's move on. If the answer is yes, let's come back and talk about it. If the answer is yes, but let's come back and talk about it. What do we need to do in order to work together? And I'll be super honest. Can we get that done, or can we not get that done? And that's one thing I would always recommend. If you're an MSP, and there are maybe half a dozen, depending upon your locale, a dozen other MSPs that if you Google MSP in Cincinnati, Ohio, you're going to get a whole list of folks. It's like, But if you show up, do exactly what you said. Here's what I would do if I were your MSP. Here's how I would convince you that I'm not just sucking your bank account dry and providing nothing in return. You know what you should do? You should take everything that I told you I'd do for this price. You should go back to your current provider, and you should go line by line. Say, what are you charging me for this? Why aren't we doing this one? Because then you'd have a talking point. Yep. Well, why isn't your MSP doing this today? Because based upon the way your business operates, I know you're going to need this for XYZ reasons. But that's when you get to show, I'm not just a run-of-the-mill carbon copy MSP. It's like I have a certain set of, it's like the Liam Neeson. It's like, I have a certain set of skills I gathered over the last decade, or blah, blah, blah,
right,
blah, blah.
Right.
Like, I will find you. It's like,
yep. And
that's, yeah.
And the more you can make that about the end customer instead of about you and your organization, the more you win, right?
Yeah.
If you've ever, Mr. Customer, if you've ever been surprised by IT spend, I know when I get a surprise bill in the mail, it's really uncomfortable. Throws my life for a little bit of a loop. Things aren't good in my life for a couple of days because I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to pay this big bill, right? Yeah. And if you're anything like me, that's an uncomfortable time for you, which is why we do strategic forward-looking planning, right? Whatever your thing is, whatever your carbon copy model is, that you go to each of your customers and say, we're going to deploy our experience into your organization so that you operate better. That's the thing that differentiates you. And if it really is just automated patching and answering the phone on the first call, and you've got a tougher hill to climb, and it's time to start figuring out what it is that you do, what your proven process is at your organization that makes you superior.
It's true. It's absolutely true. What do you, well, at your MSP, or whether it was at Lifecycle or Empath, what are some strategies you use to actually find these differentiators and, really hone in on them and become experts at just only those things?
I'm a little broken in that I spend my whole life trying to find better mousetraps to solve. And, we were really lucky at Lifecycle in that it was the first product and still may be the only product in the MSP space that actually did budgeting. And there's a funny story behind that, because I went to an incumbent vendor and said, hey, I'd really like for you to build me a report that I can turn into a budget. And they went, no, thank you. No, we'd rather not do that. No, but every MSP would have value from this. Yeah, but nobody's asking for it. And the thing was, like, I understood. One of my customers had told me a pain point was that I came and surprised him and said, knock, knock, I need money because Windows XP is about to die. And he said, you should have known this a long time ago. I did. And I went to all my big customers early, and he was kind of a medium-sized guy, and I just hadn't gotten to him yet. But surprise, I need 30 grand was not okay. It was not a good statement to make. And he kind of called me to the carpet on it. And he said, you knew this a long time ago, and we should have planned on this. And I liked the guy, and I respected the guy, and I was still a really young businessman. And then he just kind of helped me see that I had to do better. So we lifted our expectations internally. We started doing more strategic planning. We started trying to see down the road and around the corners, and delivered that to our customers. And we did. The positive outpouring was insane. And so that was when I learned, like, there was a better way to do this. And the more I talked to other MSPs and realized they weren't doing it, that was how I figured out what my differentiator was. And it's hard sometimes to go to your customer and ask for feedback, or sometimes they just, I had a good old redneck from Dewey Beach, Delaware, just look me in the face and say, dude, you got to do better. And his exact words were, if you ever surprise me like this again, I'm going to take you out back and shoot you. And when you're dealing with a redneck from Southern Delaware, you gotta wonder, like, is this real or not?
He probably knows where to drive, so he's not going to get caught.
Right. And then, to answer that question about the SaaS companies, though, I've tried really hard when I went out to build a SaaS company, to build something nobody else is doing. I think there are a lot of blue oceans out there. If you're going to be creative and start something new, you don't have that advantage if you're in a business that you've been in for 5 years or 10 years or 15 years. And that's why you've got to figure out what that experience is that sets you apart from somebody else.
I always see a common mistake I see a lot of SaaS companies make, but also MSPs, is you begin to leverage the building blocks of differentiation as the differentiator. What I mean by that, you had talked about culture, you had talked about communication, you had talked about all of these other things that other people will also promise and can provide. Like, one thing, your co-founder, also a good friend of mine, Wes, always said is, like, if you're a bank, when he was a CISO at a bank, or I don't know if he was a CISO, but he was a security guy at a bank. Okay. He said, hey, why are we different than any other bank around here? You can't say customer success and customer support. How are we different? They're like, well, it's our customer support. Why can't we say that? He's boop, 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 calls to the next bank. He's like, yep, they're promising customer support too. He's like, oh, those guys don't really have good customer support. It's like, you know what they say about you? The same thing.
Yep.
So it's like, I see a lot of people, they think they're leveraging the building blocks of differentiate. It's like, those are all super important things to have a great company that's capable of differentiating. Like, you need a good culture, you need good support, you need great communication, but your true differentiator needs to be around, what is the outcome you provide your client? And, to steal a quote from Bobby Axelrod from Billions, you got to explain to them, why are you the best person in the world for this? Why is there nobody on the face of the planet better than you at providing this thing? And if you try to focus on differentiation, that's not anywhere close to being the best in the world at one very specific thing, you're not leveraging it correctly. You're not creating a differentiator. You're just creating noise.
Yeah. And I mean, now that you're saying that, I wish I had grabbed my notes before this call, because Adam Slutskin has a conversation about this that is just absolutely fantastic. And he's talking to vendors most of the time when he's talking about this, but he's got 5 success criteria for vendors. And he says, vendors are going to do well if they can help MSPs do these 5 things. And the more of them that you can check off the box, the better you are. And they're make money, save money, provide better reporting, consolidate multiple products, and simplify something complex. So those 5 things, the more of those boxes you can check, the better off you're going to be for a customer. The easier it's going to be to sell your product. The more successful your product is probably going to be. And MSPs should look at it in not too dissimilar a fashion, right? If I can go in as the MSP and replace multiple vendors, if I can, supplant the telecom vendor, maybe a copier vendor or something like that, and come in with one suite of services that manages it all, customers like that. It simplifies their life. It makes their life easier. We're IT guys. We're probably not going to save them money, but maybe we can help them figure out how to make money, right? Can we simplify a really complex part of their business? If they're using fancy software that's in a niche that we really understand, can we streamline some of that, automate some of that, just make their life better and easier? As we're building out the next SaaS company, we're doing a ton of work to make sure that Slack and Asana and and HubSpot all talk to each other and pass data back and forth. as an MSP, I wasn't good at doing that for my customers. And I look back at it and go, man, I missed an opportunity. Imagine if I could go out to my customers and say, hey, here's a stack that we're really good with. And if you're using tools like this, we can get them all to dance. We can get them all to work really well together. Every business needs some basic tools. As an MSP, we integrated and API'd together all of our tools. We did exactly 0 of it for our customers. Right? Think about the differentiators that would be. If somebody had walked into my customer and gone, "Hey, did your guy get your Slack messenger to talk to your Asana product?" No. Would you like to see what that looks like?
Boom.
Now I've differentiated myself. Yeah.
Boom.
I'm glad I wasn't selling against future me. That guy would have kicked my butt. Yeah.
Younger Alex would have been very pissed, and older Alex would have laughed at him.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
I always liked the idea of, it's like, if you don't know where to start with a client, it's like you start with education, right? A lot of your clients feel just as lost as you do. And if you roll into a business, another version of the story you had told of like showing up with this huge bill, showing up with this huge docket of things, is you need to be doing this as a business, and this is why we're going to be doing them together. So that's also just as disorienting. Like, wait a second, I haven't spent a dime on any of this, or I just got this giant quote with no context. I got a giant list of things that I don't want to review. I don't know these words.
And that's how the average MSP comes in the door, right? Let me go run a risk assessment and bring you back 400 pages of why your IT sucks, right? Now, I'm going to steal from Brian Blakely, who I think does the best job of this conversation. I've heard a bunch of people ask this question in one form or another, but I think they all got it from him. And so I'm going to give him credit regardless of whether it was him or Wes or David Powell who figured this one out. But he asks a customer, talk to me about how money moves through your business. Just explain that to me. And let's talk about how technology impacts where and how money moves through your business. And your customer will sit there and unpack that for you because they're really proud of their business and they want to talk about their business, right? If I went to Connor and said, show me how money moves through Phin, he'd go, well, a customer comes in and does a demo, and then we send them an order form, and then they process the order form and we make money. And then we set them up on recurring revenue and blah, blah, blah. And you'd be happy to talk about, whatever product you use to process payments and how the money moves back and forth from one to the other. And you'd learn a lot. And an IT company or a developer who's coming into your organization would learn a lot about the stack, what has to be supported, where the weak points are, where the potential failures are. And an MSP is the same way. I was talking to an MSP yesterday who works in manufacturing. And I'm like, have you asked one of your customers, show me how money moves through your business? He said, oh my God, I have a way to ask that's 400 more words, and I'm going to use that from now on. He said, but when I get on this conversation with a customer, it's amazing because they're like, well, I get a PO and then I have to put metal in this end of the machine and sprockets and cogs come out this end of the machine. And then we have to put a mailing label on it and palletize it and ship it and do all this other stuff. And he's like, and it's really easy for me to sit down with them and show them where the risk of failure is in that factory. And he does mostly manufacturing. And he's like, I get to walk the floor with them and learn everything about their business. The other IT guys in there talking about cybersecurity from the door and just trying to scare them into buying something. And he's like, the differentiator is that I sit and talk about their business and IT is the afterthought. The other guy comes in and talks about IT and probably puts IT in the way of their business because security.
Yeah. It frames the package you end up at as not a mindless bunch of things that's incredibly expensive, but as I walked through this whole process with him. And if I don't do any of these, then the way I make money is at jeopardy potentially. So I can't have that.
Well, and think about the motivations of the MSP today, right? We have this VCIO thing, right? My goal is to be a C-level executive inside your organization and give you advice. Do I get to be that guy by understanding your business, protecting your cash flow, helping you make good risk-based decisions based on the business? Or do I get to be that guy by fear-mongering you into buying the next widget?
Yeah.
Which one of those works, right? One of those feels like a sales guy, and one of those feels like a C-level executive who takes part in my business.
A partner.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the differentiator in my mind for MSPs today, right? And they have to be careful because the slippery slope to go, well, we provide VCIO services. That's our differentiator, right? It's not. The differentiator is the ability to have the conversation and move into something other than technology and really have a true understanding of the risk that your client is in front of and help them protect their business from it.
One thing I'd leave with MSPs is sometimes I'll start a sales call with the following prompt. It's like, well, I'm here to figure out if we can actually work together. Have you already made up your mind if we can or can't?
That's great. For a math nerd, you're not too terrible at the sales thing.
I've never had sales training, but what I can do is ask questions, be a likable person, and arrive at what I believe to be the truth. It's like, hey, this is what you're saying. It sounds like all the things that I claim to provide and we value doesn't really matter for your company. It's like, are we just not a great fit? I've had that conversation. I've also had the opposite of, yeah, I hear you saying this, and then I hear you describe what you're doing today. Do you want to stop doing those things? Is that actually important? It happened today on a sales call. I was like, well, yeah, now that you mentioned it, I would really like something that's I don't mind doing this work, but that'd be really great if I didn't have to. It's like, so it is a problem? It's something you want to fix? I didn't know it was an option. It's like, all right, let's talk about it. Why not? So yeah, it's just like get to the bottom of I want, and it's not even altruistic. It's like, I care so much more about my time than yours, as does everyone, right? Everyone cares about their own time more. It's like, I don't want to waste my time. The side benefit is you're not going to get your time wasted, because if we're here talking to each other, we're both wasting time if we can't work together or figure out if it's possible. So.
Right. Well, and my mother once said to me, he's just a sales guy. You can waste all of his time you need. And I went, that's how customers value salespeople. They really don't value them. So if you come in the room and deliver value, now all of a sudden they have to value your time, and it kind of changes the way things happen. I want to point out something you said there. You said this morning on a sales call, a CEO on a sales call in a company of, what are you guys, about 30 people now?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the CEO is on a sales call. And I see so many MSPs who are in a hurry to get the CEO off the sales call, out of the sales process. And I just want to say, like, there's a world in which you can hire a lot of sales support people, a lot of people who do other functions in the sales process, and maybe even attend the sales call with you, set you up to go into it, do a lot of the data collection ahead of it. But as the CEO, there's nothing more powerful than you coming in and sitting at the table to have the discussion. And if you're a little MSP, great, you're there anyway, because you're the only guy who can do it. But as you scale, I would encourage ownership and leadership to make sure that you attend some of this, to understand what it feels like to be your prospect or your customer.
Yeah, you'll, as I found out diving back into the sales process, because I sold the first 100 MSP partners and then stepped out, hired a sales team, and they're doing great. I was like, wonder what is going on. Like, I don't know. So hopped into a bunch of demos. I'm like, hey, like, we should just be doing this a little differently, and I think we'd start flying. It's like you start to get those little breadcrumbs. It's like, is my company getting represented the way that I want, to the people that I want very much to serve well? If the answer is not quite, well, you know what to fix.
And sales guys are tough, man. It's not always easy to keep them on message. We pay them with this thing called commission that really gets them off message. So once you figure out your differentiator, making sure that your sales process supports and enables and really dives into that differentiation, super important.
Yeah. For folks who wanted to connect with you or connect and learn a little bit more about Empath, where would you want them to go?
LinkedIn's probably the best place to find me, and it's Alex J. Farling on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Folks, if you've been listening or watching, thanks so much for joining us. We'll have links to Alex. We'll have links to Empath in the show notes, so feel free to reach out and ask him for sales advice. I know he probably has a host of things that he'll send you right away, or he'll call you an idiot for doing dumb things, and it's probably something you need to hear. So
I've been known to say things like that.
Asshole as a service is what we were joking about, right?
That's a true thing. It's a thing. It's just another service I provide. That one's free.
That one's free, yes.
That one's free.
On the house.
Connor, Thanks so much, man. Always good hanging out with you.
Always great hanging out with you. Thanks so much for the value. Folks, we'll see you on the next episode. As always, everyone, thanks so much for tuning in to Gone Fishing. If you want to find out more about high-quality security awareness training campaigns, how to launch them in ways that actually engage employees to change their habits, then check us out, Phin Security, at phinsec.io. That's phinsec.io, or click all of the wonderful links in our show notes. Thanks for fishing with me today, and we'll see you next time.